Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. In today's video, it's going to be my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 7 deadline. Unfortunately, the last deadline before the international break comes upon us. Can't lie, I'm not looking forward to it at all, but it is what it is. For time of recording this, the Europa League and Conference League are still yet to be played, so Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace and Aston Villa all play on Thursday. So for any of the information and reference wise in this video, that's not included in it, unfortunately. However, we've still got plenty to dive into and tuck into. But before we get into all the juicy stuff, thank you very much for the support on the channel. It's greatly appreciated. We're on the road to 1,300 subscribers. If you could hit that subscribe button, greatly appreciated, that is. Can we hit 100 likes once again on the video? We've hit it every video for 5 in a row. Can we make it 6? That is the target for today's video. Go ahead, hit the thumbs up button and hit the notification bell while you're down there so you don't miss an upload. And without further ado, let's crack on with the video. Now, as always, if I remember, the code for my Sun Dream Team League is just below the video. If I forgot to put it there, like sometimes I do, it's always in the description of every Sun Dream Team video. So do go down there, check it out. If it's not there, that is. We're over 400 members. Plenty of good stuff happening over there. And if you are in the top 10 during the midweek when I'm recording a video, you will have the chance to appear in a video. Now, diving into the important information ahead of the Game Week 7 deadline, which is a single game week this week. No doubles, unfortunately, with the international break the week after. So we do look at it slightly differently. One of the big, interesting injury news wise was Gabriel for Arsenal last night. Now, I know a few of you might be looking at Arsenal assets with this week and the fixture coming up with West Ham at home. You've got players like, well, teams such as Chelsea facing Liverpool, so tricky fixtures across the board. So potentially targeting an easier single might be the way forward. Now, Gabriel did indeed go up with an injury in around the 70th minute. Didn't look great. The goalkeeper landed on him. It was more awkward than dangerous, I'd say. He tried to carry on. Didn't look like he could do, and eventually was substituted for Mosquera. Now, Arteta came out in the press conference afterwards and said he was fit to carry on, which is always a good thing. You don't want any big injuries, especially with how many Arsenal have had so far at the start of the season. But similar to other positions in the Arsenal team, with the amount of stacked quality that they've now got, he was just taken off. Whether that was because he was also on a booking for time wasting, a very silly yellow card where he tried to pass the free kick off to Raya halfway through the game, got booked. I think Olympiacos were trying to go more direct, so the combination of a slight injury in his back, I think it was his shoulder where the goalkeeper landed on him, and the yellow card might have been the reason why Arteta took that decision. Now, a clean sheet and a goal in game week 6. He picked up the winner in the 96th minute against Newcastle, a fantastic header. It's what we've come to expect from Gabriel from set pieces, and he did indeed get the clean sheet against Olympiacos last night. Arsenal won 2-0 in the game. When he went off, it was 1-0. So we banked the clean sheet. Plenty of points in game week 6 for Gabriel. It looks like he might be rising 0.2, 0.3 in value. But with that injury, can you go there? Arteta showed in the Champions League yesterday just how rotation heavy that back line could be. I've said it for a little while, but we'll get onto it a little bit with regards to the Arsenal assets. But there's a lot of rotation in that team currently. And if Gabriel has a slight niggle, could Arteta potentially use it as a reason why he shouldn't be sent away with Brazil on international duty? I wouldn't put it past him. It's happened before. Plenty of clubs in the Premier League have done that with their star players. And would they play Mosquera at the weekend against West Ham? I think it's definitely an option. I think that unpredictability and uncertainty just adds a little asterisk next to Gabriel's name going into game week 7, which is far from ideal. Are Aston Villa back? That is the question that a lot of us are asking. Of course, Aston Villa last year in Sun Dream Team was very much a mainstay in lots of people's squads. You had Ollie Watkins, you had Morgan Rogers, who was a more favourable price in the 24-25 campaign on Sun Dream Team. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was about 3 to 3.5 million. It was a real budget option. However, this year being priced the way that he has been, he's definitely in that upper, well, lower premium priced bracket. It was priced the same as Ollie Watkins, if I'm not mistaken. Defensively wise, this season so far, they've shown their capabilities. Under Unai Emery in the Europa League, I think I heard a stat the other day that Emery in the Europa League, the last 4 times he's entered the competition, has got to the final with different teams, which is a remarkable statistic if that is the one. Aston Villa, they've got to be one of the favourites for the Europa League, and they do indeed play tonight. Villa, they score 3. Watkins getting on the score sheet. Rodgers getting a very fortuitous assist, deflecting off his hand. For those of you who owned Ollie Watkins, I'm sure you would have hoped for the assist points to be taken and given to him instead. Wasn't meant to be. But are Villa attacking assets back on the cards going forward? Now, they do have some okay fixtures. They've had some really good ones towards the start of the season. Of course, if you play other fantasy assets, it's been the balance of keeping players like Rodgers and Watkins when they've been flattering to deceive against keeping them with really good fixtures. Now, they did look slightly better on Sunday against Fulham. Once Raul Jimenez went off the pitch, they lost structure, that Fulham that is, and Aston Villa definitely capitalised on that situation. I think John McGinn, we'll get to him in a little while when I answer some questions towards the back end that I've asked on social media. But John McGinn, back-to-back goals for Aston Villa. He's playing in a more central role rather than out on the right due to injuries in there. He's looking like a very decent asset. Players like, I think Jadon Sancho hasn't even travelled with the Aston Villa squad for the Europa League game on Thursday, so he's definitely not on the cards. And Gesson is a bit raw talent-wise. He's shown some potential, might be one to look at further down the line. But I'd just hold off on the Villa assets. Watkins last week missed his penalty, so I doubt he will be on them if they do earn one in game week 7 and onwards. But I'm very much hoping in the very near future Villa assets do become an option again. Hopefully they drop in price just enough so they're not that premium price, the Watkins and the Rodgers of the world. But you can see, defensively wise, they're still very much on pretty decent form. On to Tottenham now, and their game week 6 has been a mixed one, but a potentially good one if you are a Tottenham fan, showing good qualities that perhaps you didn't have in previous seasons. Now, they drew 1-1 at home to Wolves at the weekend. A disappointing result. I'm sure as Tottenham fans would have hoped going into a fixture like that, with Wolves being rock bottom of the league with 0 points in 5 games, you would have hoped to come away with 3 points. But picking up a vital point in the 90-plus minute in stoppage time with a Palhinha goal, it showed fight. I think last season you would have lost that kind of game, and exactly the same with the midweek game away to Bodo Glimt. 2-0 down in that fixture. It looked for all love nor money that you was going to come away with no points in that game. Bodo Glimt, if I'm not mistaken, they had 60-70% of the ball throughout that 90-minute spell. They did play very well. You have to admit that. Bodo Glimt at their stadium is a very unique place. It's not actual grass, it's an artificial surface, it's a smaller stadium, it's a fair distance travel wise. But when they're 2-0 down, and it was 2 well taken goals to be fair by the Bodo Glimt player, I didn't think Tottenham had it in to come back. Van der Ven picking up the goal in a game where I mentioned it a couple of weeks back and at the start of the season. I didn't see him as an asset. He started the season at 3.5 million, and I think without the goal in this week, it would have once again showed why that was the case. But it seems like he's added an extra level of attacking threat to his game this season. Now, Christian Romero wasn't in the squad for this one. He had an injury doubt. Well, he was an injury doubt. He didn't travel, and there's obviously more injury doubt going into game week 7 for him away to Leeds. We still need to wait for Thomas Frank's press conference. As time of recording this video, that hasn't happened yet, so there's still an element of the unknown with regards to the severity of his injury. But Van der Ven taking the captaincy armband, bullet header, Pedro Porro coming in with the assist as we've expected him to do over the last season or so, cracking ball into the box. And for those of you who do own Porro, that is exactly what you're hoping for. Unfortunately, he's not on set pieces anymore, but Van der Ven picking up an important goal. And then coming back 2-2 in the last minute, I think it was an own goal it was credited as in the end after an awful long time for VAR to be looking at it. Goalkeeper pushed it against their defender and it trickled in. But it showed fight, it showed determination, it showed that under Thomas Frank, even when the chips are down, he's still going to fight for points. And I don't think that was necessarily the case under Ange Postecoglou. I think definitely towards the back end of the season, a lot of players at Tottenham, if the Premier League fixtures wasn't going right or you was down a couple of goals, the eye was very much on the Europa League. But Paulinho and Van der Ven picking up the goals. Positive points, despite 2 points being dropped in both fixtures. I think there's a lot of rotation once again. Tottenham rested a lot of key players in the week. Kudus even getting a rest in that one. Paulinho started on the bench, did come on as well. So star assets, not necessarily guaranteed for those 90 minutes as well. And I think that's the running theme throughout a lot of these European teams. The squads are a lot bigger this season. There's a lot more chance for rotation. Whereas in last campaign, you would have known the nailed assets. Personally, Arsenal wise, it would have been Saka. Chelsea, it would have been Cole Palmer. And Man United, when they was in the Europa League as well, it would have been Bruno Fernandes. It's not the case anymore. There's a lot more rotation, and Tottenham have showed that once again. Moving on to Liverpool now, and their team and results this week have not been what we expected at all. Losing away to Palace is by no means an awful result on the face of things. Palace, of course, going on their fantastic unbeaten run. They're going to debut in the Europa Conference League tonight, I think it is. So fair play to them. Hope they go well, especially because I've got multiple players in my team from their team. So the clean sheet wouldn't be too bad on that front. But as for Liverpool, they did get defeated at Selhurst Park in the last minute Eddie Nketiah finish. And in midweek, they lost to Galatasaray again 1-0. Now, they lost, but the important thing for me there is the nil. When we associate a defeat with Liverpool, it's 3-2, it's 2-1. They're still getting on the score sheet. They're still looking good going forward. And to see a nil next to Liverpool's name is a big surprise, considering the amount of attacking talent that they've got in their squad. Of course, you've got Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, Ekitike, Salah, Gakpo, Chiesa. Just so many players with such high levels of quality. Now, that is either a blessing or a curse, depending on how you're looking at things currently. Going into the game, you'd have expected Liverpool to come out with a victory. But Arne Slot did ring the changes, and Mo Salah missed the minutes. The 90-minute man himself was on the bench. Big surprise. He's 7.3 million, I'm tempted to say currently. He started the season at 7.5 million. Now, the longer his poor performances go on, the more the questions are going to be asked about, is he, quote, essential in Sun Dream Team? Now, one of my mistakes towards the back end of the 24-25 season was hanging on to Salah for a little bit too long. His performance had plummeted from about March onwards. For some reason, that kind of month sticks in my mind, where he wasn't quite getting the points that he was at the start of the season, and I hung on to him for far too long. Now, for those of you who haven't got him at the minute, and you've separated and spread the money elsewhere, and you've potentially got another premium midfielder, or you've gone for a defender that's maybe out the price range of a few of us who are struggling for money and still budget building, I think you're currently better off without him. Whether that's going to be the case going forward, I'm unsure. Of course, him getting benched in this game does mean he's had his rest. Now, I'm not sure if he got benched with Chelsea away in mind this week, but he was on the bench regardless. And I think going forward, if he does get another benching in Europe, it's going to be a serious conversation that we have about Mohamed Salah. For the rest of the Liverpool squad, they've not quite got the balance right with the new signings, I don't think. Now, when I associate Liverpool and being an incredibly good team, they have a workman-like midfield. When they won the league during the pandemic, they had Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho as a midfield three. It was a midfield that complemented that attacking lineup of Firmino, Mane and Salah. It allowed them to stay high up the pitch and do what they wanted attacking-wise. Now, last season when they won the league, it was very similar. They had McAllister, they had Szoboszlai, they had Gravenberch at the base of the midfield three. You knew what you was going to get. Occasionally Curtis Jones would come in, occasionally Harvey Elliott would come in, and even Endo might have the occasional game instead of Gravenberch, but that was a rarity. This season, you have no idea who's going to start in that midfield, and it's just adding an extra layer of unpredictability. You could go with Wirtz in there, you could go with Gravenberch, you could go with McAllister, you could go with Szoboszlai. Szoboszlai could be deployed at right back. There's just so much attacking talent. I'm not sure where it's best to place these players on the pitch currently. Mo Salah, I think 99 times out of 100 is going to start on that right-hand side. Up front, no idea. Ekitike, Isak, I think it's a flip of a coin. Ekitike started his Liverpool career much better, scored more important goals. Isak, he scored his goal at home to Southampton in the Carabao Cup, but he missed a fantastic chance against Crystal Palace at the weekend. And if you're going to pick between them, I genuinely think currently Liverpool fans would rather Ekitike start over Isak. I think he's still getting up to speed. And out on the left, you'd say Gakpo is the starter. He started pretty much every game for Liverpool, but I think it's so tough on Chiesa. Whenever he's come into that Liverpool squad, he's scored important goals and got important goal contributions. Now, he wasn't even involved in the European squad originally. He was dropped out of it, and it only took the injury to the young centre-half that Liverpool brought during the summer for Chiesa to be reintroduced to that squad. And even then, I don't think he was taken to Galatasaray in the week. I think he didn't even make the squad. So, personally, on form, it should be Chiesa playing on that left-hand side. But to add to all this, they did pick up injuries in the week as well. Ekitike overstretched for the ball, was taken off with an injury. It looked very muscular based and it didn't look too great. The early warning and early noise coming out of the camps surrounding Liverpool is it was basically cramp. Now, we're still yet to hear more on that from Arne Slot, but with it being cramp, I'd assume Isak starts at the weekend over Ekitike just out of precautionary measures. And the more serious injury it looks like is Alisson in goal. I think Osimhen was through one-on-one, tried to slot it past him. Alisson got down for once again another great one-on-one save, and straight away he signalled to the bench. Now, Alisson has history of muscular injuries for Liverpool. He misses spells throughout the season, and sometimes they are extended spells as well. Now, they've got the young lad from Valencia, I think it's Mamardashvili. He's a good deputy for him. They spent 35 plus million on him a couple of seasons ago, loaned him back to Valencia, and of course got him back for this season. So they are well equipped in that position. But losing Alisson in a defence that already looks quite shaky at times is never going to be a good sign for Liverpool. Van Dijk, a little bit overpriced at the minute. Could you go for Mamardashvili this week? He's going to go down 0.3 in value. I'd probably stay away with Chelsea weight as well. So Liverpool players, not looking too great going forward, and with a tricky fixture in game week 7, maybe it's a week to stay away from the Liverpool assets. Ironically, as a huge contradiction to what I've just said there with regards to the Liverpool attacking assets, Chelsea struggling defensively. Now, this isn't as much the data-wise. I think over the course of the season, they've picked up a couple of clean sheets. Against Benfica in the week, that was okay. They picked up a 1-0 victory. Benfica had chances. The homecoming of Jose Mourinho once again with probably his 15th team since he left Stamford Bridge. But it's always nice to see him back at Stamford Bridge, just around the area. You can see the Chelsea fans love him. But Chelsea defensively, they've got so many options that aren't available to them currently. It's making them struggle. In the right position, they are well stacked. Reece James, Malo Gusto, they're going to rotate positions. Occasionally, you'll have Reece James in midfield. Malo Gusto started against Benfica, so for those of you who do still have him as he was a budget option, he's picking up points. He's not necessarily starting every game, but for that price, he's doing okay. In the left-back position, Cucurella, he's starting games. He doesn't really have too much competition down that side. I think they brought Jarell Hato, but he's having to be deployed at centre-half due to their lack of options. And going on to the centre-back positions, it's just a mess, quite frankly. Chalobah picked up the red card at home to Brighton the other day for the last man tackle, so he won't be available for the fixture at home to Liverpool. You've then got Tosin. He's out with a calf injury until after the international break. And Wesley Fofana is also out the Liverpool fixture under concussion protocols. So you've got the young lad Achaman or Badashile. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Badashile was actually put in the squad of players outside Chelsea with Raheem Sterling that wasn't even allowed to train with the first team. So to see him back in the squad is an interesting one for all the money that they've spent, of course. Levi Colwill is a long-term absentee with his ACL injury. I wouldn't expect him to be back until March, April time at least. So it does look like the centre-back pairing will be Badashile and Agyemang for Liverpool at the weekend. Also, Andre Santos, who's been a decent player so far this season for Chelsea in that midfield, is out into the international break with an injury. So you'd assume the midfield three will be Lavia, Caicedo, and probably Enzo Fernandez going into that Liverpool game. A very much workman-like midfield, lots of energy, getting around them, that kind of thing. But defensively wise, For Chelsea to keep a clean sheet in that game, I think they're going to have to defend exceptionally well. We've just spoke about Liverpool's attacking talent and it not quite kicking into gear, but it's still available. And when you compare that to the front three that Chelsea are probably going to deploy at the weekend, maybe Garnacho, maybe Neto on the right with João Pedro up front if he gets over his niggling injuries. I know which front three I'd rather have. Can the young lad and Badashile keep it out or keep the ball out the back of the net with Sanchez behind them at the weekend? I'm not too sure, but I'm excited. It's going to be a good game. I think after the international break, Chelsea's fixtures start to turn for the better once again. Of course, they'll have Chalobah back for that one. Maybe one or two come back from injury, like they've said in their press conferences. Maybe you'll get Wesley Fofana back. And once again, Chelsea defensively will look slightly better for their price. But currently, I'll be staying clear of the Chelsea defensive assets. And the last team we'll cover before moving on to the questions that I put out on social media on X. So if at any time I'm asking some questions, it'll be over there more than likely. So, Arsenal, hitting form at just the right time. Now, they've had a very tricky start to the season fixture-wise, going away to Newcastle, away to Man United and away to Liverpool in their first three away fixtures in the six that we've played so far. Very tricky. To add to that, a Nottingham Forest team coming to the Emirates. Yes, it wasn't the Nottingham Forest team from last season under Nuno that was so good defensively, but it's still Forest. This season, of course, very different. And Manchester City, where they dropped points, picking up a 90-plus minute equaliser with Martinelli. So far, realistically, when you're looking at it on paper, the only, quote, easier fixtures that they've had is Leeds at home and Nottingham Forest at home. Yes, you can say Man United aren't exactly in great form at the start of this campaign, but going to Old Trafford is never an easy game. Ask any Liverpool fan, despite them winning the league last season and doing really well in the previous seasons, or Man City fans with that, if you go to Old Trafford, it's going to be a very difficult game. So to walk out there with 3 points is never an easy feat. But for Arsenal, they are hitting form when Liverpool are slowly faltering as well, which is quite nice. Last season, whenever Liverpool did drop points, it seemed to be that Arsenal also dropped points and they'd just lose ground and lose ground. And come February time, March time, the league had already been wrapped up pretty much for Liverpool. There was 10, 15 points away, and the lack of depth in the Arsenal squad really showed last season. We was having to bring players off the bench like Raheem Sterling, just not good enough quality for a team that wants to be challenging for the league. Now this season, injury-wise, Arsenal have still been hit as hard as they was last season. Kai Havertz, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Noni Madueke, Gabriel Jesus still with his injury from last season. Saliba coming off against Liverpool. So they've had injuries across the board, but the players that they've been able to bring in have kept the momentum going, and that is the massive part of this team so far this season. Now, with all the signings that they've made, for some reason, Leandro Trossard keeps starting on the left-hand side for Arsenal. I'm not sure why that is, because he is awful. He should have scored against Newcastle. He should have scored so many goals last night in the Champions League at home to Olympiacos. And I was crying for him to come off the pitch after about 45 minutes or so. It just, with Martinelli having to play on that right-hand side, making space for Trossard on the left, it just showed the drop in quality from the players that we brought this season. Madueke, Eze and Saka are on a different level to them too. Martinelli, if you play him on the right, is a very good asset. Of course, he did pick up the goal last night. It was a tap-in, but that goal was made from Gyökeres. His determination, his power, his pace to get through the Olympiacos backline. He basically bullied 2 of them out of the way. It was a decent enough shot. The keeper got a save on it. It rolled onto the post. Martinelli actually tried to let the ball roll into the back of the net. Unfortunately, it didn't quite. And Gyökeres did pick up an assist. Martinelli with a goal. And Saka picked up the 92nd minute goal to make it 2-0. Playing off the left-hand side, weirdly enough, Saka and Eze was on the wings. Eze came on the left, Saka came on the right for their cameos towards the back end, but they switched it over. I don't think he trusted Eze defensively. They was getting down Arsenal's left side a few times, and Saka was deployed over there for defensive reasons, I think personally anyway. They picked up the goal. The goalkeeper probably should have kept it out, but once again, there was rotation throughout the Arsenal team for this European fixture. Saka, Calafiori, Timber, Eze, Declan Rice all started on the bench. Now, last season, if you'd have told me who's starting this game, Saka, Rice, and Timber would have been nailed on. There'd have been no debate. But Ben White, Trossard, and Martinelli took those positions up today, and Moreno as well in midfield. Now, Moreno is a decent enough asset. He'll pick you up a goal every now and again, but he's there to protect other players. Zubimendi was one of the players that have been playing week in, week out, minutes wise. Once again, looked class on the ball. Just the quality that he's brought to this Arsenal team, I think, has gone under the radar for a lot of opposition fans. You watch Rodri in that Man City team in the past few years, and Zubimendi is definitely bringing the same similar level of quality. Of course, I'm not going to compare him straight away to Rodri. Rodri won countless titles, countless trophies across his City seasons, but Zubimendi definitely has the potential to do similar levels for Arsenal. Odegaard showing quality in this game. Now, since he come back against Newcastle, his ball distribution has just been another level. He still struggles to shoot. Now, for those of you who did watch the channel last year, I had him in my fantasy team for Sun Dream Team, and he was just infuriating. I picked him instead of Declan Rice when Rice scored both free kicks in the Champions League against Real Madrid, and Odegaard just became such a frustrating asset to own. He picked up an assist against Olympiacos in the Champions League for the Saka goal. He was still on corners when Saka was on the pitch. That's an interesting thing to note. Whether that was just because he started the game or not is still yet to be seen, or whether it was because Odegaard got the assist for the Gabriel goal at the weekend. But Saka normally takes corners from one side and Declan Rice the other, so potentially something to keep an eye on. But going through the team, Gyökeres played 90 minutes in this one. He's looking better and better each week. Yes, he didn't get the goal, but does him playing 90 minutes in this game against Olympiacos mean he's a potential dart for West Ham at the weekend? Now, when he goes away with Sweden, I think he'll play both 90 minutes in their international games. I don't think Isak will play both, so it will be Gyökeres that gets flogged in the floor minutes-wise. Can you risk not playing him in this game? Can you play someone like Moreno up front or Trossard as a centre-forward? I think it maybe in a different game he might have done, but West Ham have been such a bogey team for Arsenal over the past few years. They beat us, I think, back-to-back years at the Emirates, and if Arsenal can get through this game with a victory, I think they go top of the league before Liverpool play Chelsea, maybe put a little bit of pressure on. For me personally, I think Gyökeres has to start this game, getting back up and running and scoring again. He's looking sharper, he's looking fitter. Get him 90 more minutes or start him. If Arsenal are winning, fingers crossed they are, take him off and rest him. But to me, Gyökeres has to start this game. On to a few questions that you have sent in on X. I sent out the question of myself last night if you wanted any answering ahead of the final thoughts video for Game Week 7. You've duly obliged, so thank you very much for that. It's greatly appreciated. It does help out the video massively. So first up, best players for the 0.2, 0.3 rise. So in this question, I think he had a few, well, they had a few potential players dropping in value, and they wanted to know which players could potentially come in to boost their team value. Now, for me, there's 4 assets this week that offer reliability for minutes going forward. Now, first up would be Enzo Fernandez. He has the potential to be on penalties for Chelsea. Of course, he did take the last one while Pedro was on the pitch. Whether or not he's going to be on that for the foreseeable future is still yet to be seen. Whether Pedro will take it off him or not. Scored at the weekend at home to Brighton. He took his goal very well. I think he picked up a bonus point as well in that fixture. He just offers reliability for minutes, and with Chelsea struggling for numbers in midfield, no Palmer, no Andre Santos, I think he's either going to play in the number 8 role next to Caicedo, with Buonanotte in front in that number 10 role, or he will play the number 10 role himself. And I think from what I've seen for Chelsea, they do play better when Enzo Fernandez is that number 10 role. Difficult fixture in Game Week 7, of course, at home to Liverpool, but if you're bringing in players like this, you're not looking short term for that one fixture punt. You're looking for Game Week 7 and onwards after the international break. Next up would be Jeremy Doku. A very unpredictable player, granted. I think he's going to go up 0.2 or 0.3 this week. All the predictions for the prices, of course, are on not only fpl.co.uk, I think it is. Check the link down below. It's always in all my Sun Dream Team videos. It's a fantastic website. Go check it out for all the analytical stuff. It doesn't just cover Sun Dream Team on there. So if you are a player, wow, struggling to speak at the minute. If you are a player of other fantasy games as well, there's plenty of stuff over there to go stick your teeth into. So Jeremy Doku, he blanked in midweek away to Monaco, but he picked up a huge 17 pointer against Burnley at home in the last Premier League game. Looks like Pep's flavour of the week. Him and Foden are getting lots of minutes, and Tijani Reinders as well in that midfield. Whether or not that will continue, I'm not sure. Of course, Pep Roulette is always a massive thing. But Savinio came on yesterday for Man City, and judging from the Man City fans' point of view, he didn't impress at all. So, one to note on that front, I do think that Doku, he has a lot of attacking threat. He's always good for bonus. He got a couple of assists at home to Burnley, and I think it's always that bonus potential with Doku that we're hoping for, not necessarily the goal output. Next up, Sandro Tonali had his rest against Bradford in the Carabao Cup round in game week, well, in the third round, I should say. Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton both played in that fixture after being rested for the previous Premier League game away to Bournemouth. There's less rotation in that Newcastle team than there is up front, in the midfield that is, compared to the attacking positions. Now, you're probably wondering why a certain Anthony Gordon isn't on this list. Yes, he is on penalties, it seems, but I'll get to him in a little while when I talk about how my team is doing this week. But it does look like Anthony Gordon is on penalties, but there's just so much rotation option in that Newcastle attacking lineup. They've got players like Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy that can play either side, and of course you've got Alanga and Anthony Gordon as well. So you've got 4 options out wide, and you've got Johan Visser to throw into the mix once he's fit in around October, November time. So for me, Tonali offers more reliability on minutes. It looks like he's on set pieces as well. Free kicks, corners from one side, that is. Picked up the assist last night away to Union Saint-Gilloise. Correct me if I'm wrong down below in the comment section for all you Belgian fans, if there is any of you out there. The 4-0 victory. He got the assist for the Voltemade goal. Decent shot from outside the box. Picked up a couple of shots on target as well. Got the assist for the Voltemade goal at the weekend as well. It was just really good. Really, really good. Really solid asset. And I think for his price range and reliability, he's going to be an option going forward. For me, I'd always go to Tonali over Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes. It seems like he is more reliable for bonus points. And the last player I'd suggest is John McGinn. We spoke about him a little bit earlier in the video with the Aston Villa section, but he's hit bonus points in his last 5 games, and he has started these last 5 games as well. The likes of Tielemans and Onana are still out. They're yet to play the Europa League game on Thursday, so if he does pick up an injury, he's of course not going to be an option. But at the time of recording this, in my eyes, he's definitely slipping into our thoughts with regards to potential options in midfield. Back-to-back goals as well. A well-taken one from outside the box. He offers a lot of routes to points. He tackles, of course, he's a very combative midfielder in that Aston Villa lineup. I think John McGinn slipping under the radar with more just assets like Rodgers and Watkins, more sparkly assets, if you will, players that we like to see in our team. If you look at your Sun Dream team and you've got John McGinn in there, you go, ugh. If you've got Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rodgers, you're more excited to see them play football. But I think the reliability of John McGinn is just putting them ahead of the other two. Ordering these players for the next few game weeks, a few quick fire questions to finish this video off before we check my team and how it's done so far this week. So I'd put in the first position for your teams going forward. Looks like he's going to be reliable for minutes in that Palace team. I then go Jeremy Doku. Yes, Pep Roulette is going to be a thing, but I think bonus points wise, he's going to start a lot of games, and him just being next to Erling Haaland with his output at the minute elevates him above third position, that is Anthony Gordon. Now, I brought Anthony Gordon into my team because he went up 0.3 value that week. It wasn't because I thought he was going to be on anything in particular set piece wise or that he was in fantastic form. It was solely because he scored and got fantastic bonus points against Bradford in the Cup, and it allowed that 0.3 value in jump. I think Eddie Howe has showed already that he's going to play back 5 in games when his team's fatigued a little bit. So you're going to take one of the attacking assets out. He's going to play 5-3-2. You'd assume Voltemada plays up front, and then there's going to be one more attacking position in certain fixtures. So for that reason, Gordon is in third place. Do I think Gordon is a fantastic asset going forward? Absolutely. Would I put anyone off it? No. Next up, the best Arsenal attacker. For me, long term, Victor Gyökeres. For this week solely, I'd say either Eze or Saka. Of course, Eze and Saka both got their rests midweek against Olympiacos, where Gyökeres played the full 90 minutes. And I'm not sure if that means he's going to start against West Ham. Who's going to be on penalties is still a big debate. Will it be Gyökeres? Will it be Saka? I do think it will be Gyökeres, but we don't seem to get many penalties. We only had 2 or 3 in the Premier League the entirety of last season, so whether that's coming into your thinking for your player, I'm not too sure. Of course, Saka last season missed a large chunk with his injury, but still showed what a good player he was. Eze has not really picked up any bonus points for Arsenal so far. He's got the assist, he's got the goal. I think he will start on the left against West Ham at the weekend because West Ham are going to play a deeper line, and that is one of the reasons why Eze was brought. So for the long term, I'll go Gyökeres, but if you're bringing in an Arsenal player this week, I'd say it has to be either Eze or Saka, unfortunately. Best players to target out of Trippier, a Palace defender, and Calafiori or Gabriel. For me, it's probably a Palace defender, just because of the price. I think Gabriel's nearly 5 million in value. Yes, Arsenal are picking up lots of clean sheets, but if that clean sheet goes, you're relying on his attacking threat from set pieces, which he does have. That is a very valid point. But it's 5 million, and I look at a player like Munoz in my own team at a 5.3, 5.5 million value, and I think to myself, is it better to take some money out and put it into the attack? And I think I'd be the same with Gabriel going forward. Calafiori I'd stay away from. He scored fantastically at the start of the season, but with the rotation coming, I think his time as a starter for both games is going to come to an end pretty sharpishly. He won't play in the League Cup game. Miles Lewis-Skelly last night showed his quality defensively and offensively. He should have got an assist for the Martinelli 50 pence header that he put wide. But Miles Lewis-Skelly looked really, really good last night. He was either the best or the second best player on the pitch, depending on what kind of thing you look for in a game. I think for me, Odegaard slightly edged it with regards to his just playmaker-like ability. But Lewis-Skelly showed once again that he is a quality asset at left back. I think Palace defenders, I listened to the Dream Team Tonic podcast with Jim on there. He's obviously a die-hard Palace fan, and he said that there won't be too much minutes shared across that back line. Tyreek Mitchell will share with Borna Sosa. Munoz looks like he will have to get pretty much every minute. And then there's a young French lad that they brought in the summer as a centre-back that could potentially switch with Chris Richards at times. But Lacroix and Gay will start pretty much every game. And without seeing them tonight in the Conference League, I'd put them slightly ahead. And then Trippier in third position. He is a good asset, and of course that's probably being asked because of the Livramento injury, who's out for 6 to 8 weeks, unfortunately. But even in the game last night, they brought on Shaw, and you had Shaw, you had Botman, and you had Thiaw, and I think Thiaw went to right back. So there are still options out there, despite the full-back area being slightly slim. They had 4 centre-halves on the pitch at one stage. And of course, if they do play a back 5, they could end up with 3 centre-halves, Dan Burn or Lewis Hall at left back, and Jacob Murphy as a right wing back, which is something that they've done before. So Livramento being out doesn't necessarily mean Trippier's guaranteed starts. Of course, his minutes will go up because of it, but I'd be wary going forward, just in case you are thinking about bringing him in. And is it still too early for Bukayo Saka? Now, I've mentioned it a few times in this video so far. I don't think it's too early, but if you are buying Bukayo Saka, don't expect it to be the Bukayo Saka that you had last season. He will get there. He's not quite there just yet. They're slowly building his minutes back into his legs. They don't have Noni Madueke to rotate with him, so his minutes will be slightly higher than probably what the club wanted at this stage. He came on for 15-20 minutes last night. He got his goal. He got 4 or 5 points in the fixture away to Newcastle. Whether he's going to be on penalties or not, I don't know, which is, of course, a big string to his bow if that is the case. But he's probably going to keep his price this week, maybe go up 0.1 because of his contributions across both fixtures. He's a fine player to bring in. But as I said, if you're bringing Saka in for, I think he's 6.1 or 6.3 million in value, there's a few question marks over him minutes wise. Is he on penalties? Just know it's not the Saka that you maybe have hoped for. Is he still on corners? As I spoke about, Martin Odegaard took it last night. Last season, Saka was on penalties, he was on corners, it was 90 minutes every game, no matter what. He even played in the Carabao Cup against Bolton last season. So, for me, he might be brought in this week. I'm an Arsenal fan. I've not had many Arsenal players in fantasy games this week. So, if you are bringing him in, just know that he's probably going to get no points because that's what tends to happen when I own Arsenal players in fantasy games. But Saka is a fine bring in this week, but just be wary. And to round this video off, I thought I'd cover my team so far and how it is doing in game week 6. And I've got to say, it's gone a lot better than I would have ever hoped for. 151 points so far in game week 6, with still 4 players to play on the Thursday. Now, it's just been a great week. For those of you who did goal bonus this week, fair play to you. Providing you captained a certain Erling Haaland. Now, he's got, I think it's 4 goals. Of course, he picked up a couple of goals against Burnley, a couple of goals against Monaco, and did get the assist. So Erling Haaland, if you activated your goal bonus this week, scored 100 points by himself. That's a remarkable fact and statistic to bring up. How many other players have the capability to do that over a double game week? So fair play if you have done that. Just only the 76 points for me so far. I had a look on not only FPL with regards to how captain or how much he was captained in the top 1k, because I was thinking to myself, are these captaincy points actually taking me up in the rankings? I still think mindset wise towards the back end of last season, where unless you captain someone differently, the player who you didn't captain hurt you massively even if you owned them. But I think in the top 1k he was captained for around 75% of players, so every single point that he got last night was massive for taking me up in the rankings. Going through the team, Super Royce in goal, picked up the clean sheet at the weekend away to Forest. Just a fantastic asset, really. And it will stay probably one more week. Livramento, only 7 points in this game week, got the clean sheet at home to Arsenal. Of course, Arsenal did win the game 2-1, but when he was taken off with his injury, it was still 1-0 to Newcastle. He didn't play against Union Saint-Gilloise, unfortunately, and they did keep a clean sheet in that game. So for those of you who did have Pope, those kind of points affected me in the game week. Would he have played that game? Would they have won 4-0 with him in the team? There's lots of ifs, buts and maybes. He's served my team well. Unfortunately, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, so he will be departing my team going into game week 7, unfortunately. Across the back line, not much to update on my previous video. 5 points for Munoz, 3 points for Konsa, 3 points for Williams, but they're all still to play this week so far. I think out of that back line, I'm probably hoping for the most points from Munoz. It's their first game in the Conference League, and I'm hoping he will play, and that's the same for all of these players. I think minutes-wise and starts-wise, the one I'm least confident about and most doubtful about is Kamada. I'm not sure if he will start in this one. Will Hughes got an earlier sub at the weekend. Kamada got, I think it was 85 plus minutes for Palace against Liverpool. So he'll either play in the number 10 role, he'll either play as one of the midfield 2, or he won't play. Maybe a contribution off the bench, but if he could start, it'd be greatly appreciated. So Oliver Glasner, do me a solid if at all possible. Kamada with a 6-pointer. Saw with only 6 points. Unfortunately, he's at a price bracket that I'm a little bit stuck at. There's not too many budget options for European teams, and he might keep value this week or slightly drop down 0.1, but until maybe game week 8, I think that's a issue for down the line. Mohamed Kudus got a bench in midweek. 1 on the bonus point scale away from 3 bonus points, despite only being on the pitch for 20 or 30 minutes in that game away to Bodo Glimt. I think he just shows pure quality. Anthony Gordon, 23-pointer, an absolute king this week. He picked up 4 points at home to Arsenal, but 19 points away to Union Saint-Gilloise. I forgot the name for a minute there. Scored 2 penalties, got 3 bonus points overall, missing out just narrowly think he was on 11 on the bonus point scale at one stage, slightly dropped down maybe, and he nearly had 5 bonus points overall, but I couldn't ask for much more. I was surprised when he stepped up to take the penalty, I can't lie. I think it was Alanga who got brought down for the tackle. I didn't think much of it. I think Trippier was standing there with the ball. He passed it over to Anthony Gordon, and my eyes lit up. And then I thought back to having Bruno Fernandes in my team earlier in the Sun Dream Team season, and there was worry straight away because the last time I saw Anthony Gordon take a penalty, he missed it away to Everton. So that was an added bonus. And then to see the VAR give a second penalty was just, I couldn't believe my eyes, to be honest. They give it for the handball. He stepped up again. He slotted it away again. So it probably means he is on penalties going forward. If you watch the video back, he took the penalty away from Voltamara, the second one. He came up, he asked Anthony Gordon for the ball, and he just said, no, you're not having it. And if he scores, it looks great. If he misses, you don't take him again. So thankfully he scored. Huge 19-pointer. He's rocketed me up in the leaderboards overall. I think I'm just above 3,000 with still 4 players to play where not many will have 1 player, let alone 4. So if I could get 15 to 20 points from these 4 players tonight, it would be fantastic. And up front, of course, Erling Haaland, 76 points, as we spoke about, 100 points for those of you who did use the goal bonus, and just 4 points for Mohamed Salah. Is going to go down 0.3 in value. As I spoke about earlier in the video, it's potentially one to look at going forward. He's got his rest. He'll play away to Chelsea. I'll probably keep him for game week 8 as well. But if the performances stay as they are, that money is going to be shared around the squad. 151 points with 4 players still to play. A player who didn't play in the week at all in Livramento, so I only had 9 doublers going into the midweek game. With Kudos on the bench, Salah on the bench, it's been a very good week so far. So that does conclude my final thoughts ahead of game week 7. Don't be caught out this week. It is a Friday deadline. I'm tempted to say at 6:30. So just set your alarms for 6. Don't miss out, otherwise you will regret it, especially with an international break afterwards. Don't sit there for 2 weeks stewing about the fact that you've missed a deadline and you couldn't do your transfers and your team might be in a slightly worse position. So get your transfers locked in ahead of the Friday deadline. It's been a fantastic week so far for me personally across the board. Rocketed up many leaderboards, lots of points on the board. Captaining Haaland has gone exceptionally well. Bringing in Anthony Gordon has gone really well. Not many of my transfers this season have hit the ground running like Gordon has, so hopefully that continues going forward. Players like Dan Ballard and Cole Palmer with their very early injuries after bringing them in have set me back a few times, but it's nice to see some progress. Leave a comment down below on how your week is going so far, points-wise. Depending on the time of this video, how many players that you still have to play in the Thursday fixtures. This will probably be uploaded afterwards, knowing me. But how many points you got overall in game week 6 and what your transfer plans are for game week 7. Check the description down below for all my socials. We've got X, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, we've got all that good stuff. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,300 subscribers. Hit the like button. Let's see if we can target 100 likes once again. Push the content out to all Sun Dream Team players across the land and hit the notification bell so any uploads that I put up onto YouTube, you're not missing out on the content. And thank you very much for watching for today's video. You'll be seeing me in a new video very soon.